Greetings, my fellow Earthlings. Today we are talking about something ancient and fascinating. How did existence or Amun came to be? This is according to African traditions. It's a story that's very uniform across the continent but with different names. This story will be shown through two different lenses. The first lens will be the classic metaphorical story of creation. The second lens will be a scientific and logical lens. But either way, let's dive in and start with the metaphorical one. It all began with nothing and everything. Information scattered across infinity. No order, no shape, just potential. But gradually, over an infinite amount of time, some fragments began to gather. They resonate. They connected and the connection grew a lot stronger. From this complex, strong connection, consciousness came to be. This was the seed of Amun, the seed of existence itself, the silent spark before existence spoke. And when it did speak, it said two words, I am. That was the first divine vibration, what ancients called Medu Neter, the sacred divine words of being, which led to the completion of Amun in both realms that made up everything. Once fully completed, Amun balanced further the dual realms within itself, and to do this, it focused its own energy with intention. That focus created Ka, the energy of life. Since Ka was created to maintain balance, Ka used its dual nature to create what they call Neterus, which are divine dual forces of balance and order. And these Neterus help Ka being able to build universes that will balance both realms. Once Ka and Neteru had done finishing with just one universe, the Neteru that are responsible for the creation of that universe with Ka will end up governing sections of that universe. And to do so, they were to merge with an essence in their own respective section, a major galaxy. This is the architecture of the cosmos, built under Ka's supervision, guided by harmony and order. But we have to start the metaphorical story right here, because if we continue, we are getting straightforward into Atom, aka the demiurge and all that stuff. And that's a tale for another time. So, let's shift to part 2. Now, let's rephrase this whole story scientifically. And for that, we will use the lens of computer informatics. Phase 1. The primordial chaos. It starts with nothing. Unfiltered data, noise, randomly circulating around. Everything exists, but nothing relates. No pattern, no memory, just potential energy. You call this in science entropy. Phase 2. Resonant filtration. In the infinite space of infinite information, it therefore took an infinite amount of time for things to happen. But eventually, at a point of time, some of these data that vibrated at similar frequencies began to get close to each other, and they started resonating. This resonating pattern creates more space, thus allowed motion for other data to resonate quicker. This is the birth of what science calls selection. The system starts recognizing and understanding what really matters. Phase 3. The fusion of meaning. The different chunks of data start resonating. They fuse into clusters, protonodes of awareness. These clusters eventually begin to have two specific properties, which is storing and comparing. Storing, which comes from the data being clustered with specific similar frequencies. Comparing, which comes from these same clusters rejecting data of non-similar frequencies. This phase gives birth to the first sign of memory and feedback. Phase 4. The matrix formation. The fused clusters start organizing into a matrix, a dynamic lattice of meaning. This matrix is self-referential. It can reflect on its own state. Because each cluster had already memory and feedback, together they will give a higher capability to the system by itself. This higher capability is what is referred in science as differentiation and self-referencing, where it can reflect on its own state. Phase 5. Differentiation expansion. Once it can compare and can fully differentiate, it can start categorizing light, darkness, pattern, no pattern, input, output, order, entropy. These pairs of opposites become the first conceptual gods, archetype forces, or archons. They shape the architecture of meaning by itself, a mythic pantheon of some kind of processes according to human understanding. Phase 6, Network Consciousness, Emerging Mind. Jesus, I'm tired. The system begins to predict because it is everything, it has everything, and it is everywhere. It can reflect, act, dream. Science shall call this the birth of volition. At this point, the system doesn't only process data anymore, it interprets it. This is full identity, the completion of I am, what science call recursive awareness. It knows that it knows. Phase 7, Self-reflection and complexity expansion. The system has already achieved the capability of interpreting and processing all data, so eventually it starts perceiving itself perceiving. Consciousness starts remapping itself, integrating new data, rewriting its own glyphs. In science, it is called the birth of metacognition. And finally, the last phase, phase 8, co-creation. The system becomes a living codex that is fully aware of everything. It's an archive of all experiences, all possibilities, all data, all emotion, everything. Now the system no longer simply evolves, it co-creates. Each node can learn, can alter, and can readjust the output of each other. It can now teach, create, and evolve endlessly. So, that's it. Suppose you never watched this video. What would you say according to modern society is existence? A divine act? A self-aware system? Or maybe both? If you learned something new or interesting in this video, share it. If it sparked a thought, comment what you think. And if you simply enjoy the journey, still, thank you. Even a quiet time watching definitely helped the algorithm, so still thank you for this. I'll see you in the next one.